Ladies and gentlemen, capital G, back at it with Yawgmoth, Thran Physician. Recently reprinted in Time Spiral Remastered as a time-shifted card, and let me tell you, that old school border with Yawgmoth just feels right. It's like an injustice has been corrected. So yeah, and I have to admit, I am really impressed with their choices for the time-shifted cards in this set. An original Time Spiral, the cards were cool, but they weren't impactful. Most of them were not really all that impactful. Whereas in Time Spiral Remastered, these newer cards with the old border are all relevant somewhere. Not necessarily Commander, but they're all relevant somewhere. Of course, Yawgmoth is very relevant in our format. So let's see what he gives us. Black, 2 generic for a 2/4 human cleric with protection from humans. Maybe relevant, you never know. But what is relevant is the fact that he is a sacrifice outlet. We can pay a life and sacrifice another creature to put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature, and we get to draw a card. You can also pay double black and discard a card to proliferate. So all of his abilities kind of fuel themselves together, and it leads to a number of possible strategies. So this deck mixes a little bit of Infect, a little bit of Aristocrats, a little bit of Planeswalker synergy to come up with the deck that we have today, although you can always do +1/+1 counters as well. Quite a few ways you can play it. Let's start with the list, and let's start by going through our artifacts. Arcane Signet, of course, because it can tap for a black mana. Astral Cornucopia. We're generally going to play this for 3 mana. It comes into play with X charge counters on it, so the cost is XXX, so if X equals 1, this is a 3 mana rock. But as we proliferate over the course of the game, this will produce more and more mana for us. The Charcoal Diamond. This enters this battlefield tapped, but it does give us black. Commander's Plate. This will be able to go onto our commander and provide it +3/+3 and protection from 4 different colors: red, white, blue, and green. Equips to commander for only 3 mana. Equips to any other creature for 5. Contagion Clasp, also getting pretty sweet reprint in Time Spiral. For 2 mana, when this enters the battlefield, we get to put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. And for 4 mana, and by tapping this, we can proliferate. Everflowing Chalice, 0 mana for this artifact, but it's got multi-kicker too, so every time we kick it, it gets a charge counter, and we get to tap this for a colorless for each charge counter on Everflowing Chalice, and of course this can be proliferated to increase its mana production. Expedition Map, we're running mono black in Expedition Map. This lets us go get any land card in our deck. Guess what we're running? Ivory Tower. This is a bit of spice, actually. The idea here is that, yes, we have 40 life, but we're actually going to be spending a lot of it. And we do want to pad out our life total just a little bit. So by spending life to draw a bunch of cards and keep cards in our hand, we can use the Ivory Tower to gain additional life. In this case, it's at the beginning of our upkeep. We gain X life, for X is the number of cards in our hand -4. So if you have 5, 6, or 7 cards in hand, you're gaining life off of this. And well, we're running Yawgmoth. We're going to have 6, 7 cards in our hand pretty much consistently throughout the game. Jet Medallion, 2 mana. For this artifact, black spells cost us 1 less to cast. Lightning Greaves, equipped creature has haste and shroud. Yes, we want to protect our commander, so Lightning Greaves is a good add here. Mindstone, 2 mana, taps for generic. Or we can spend the generic and tap this to draw a card. Soul Ring, 2 colorless mana, of course. A Swiftfoot Boots to grant our commander hexproof and haste, mainly the hexproof. And Thought Vessel, no maximum hand size, taps for colorless. 24 creatures in our deck, including the Cryptghast. This 4 mana 2/2 spirit says that whenever we tap a swamp for mana, we can add black to our mana pool. It also has Extort. So whenever you cast a spell, you can pay. It says Orzhov mana. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain that much life. A friendly reminder that with Extort, the ability is you pay a white or a black, regardless of what card it's printed on. So that is why the Orzhov symbol is actually found in the reminder text. It just tells you what the rules for Extort are. It does not contribute to the card's color identity. This is a question that comes up with this card quite frequently. But in the case of Extort, that Orzhov symbol does not contribute to color identity. It just reminds us that we can spend white or black mana to use Extort. So, moving on, Dread Presence. 4 mana 3/3, and whenever a swamp enters the battlefield, we can draw a card and lose a life. Or we can deal 2 damage to any target and gain 2 life. Endrixar, Master Breeder. 5 mana for a 2/2 human wizard. Whenever we cast a creature spell, we get X black Thrill creature tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the spell's converted mana cost. And anytime that we control 7 or more Thralls, we sacrifice Endrixar, Master Breeder. That should not happen, because the idea here is that we have Endrixar out, we cast a creature, we get our tokens. Those tokens will very soon get sacked off to Yawgmoth in exchange for cards in our hand. Filth. 4 mana for this 2/2 with Swamp Walk and Incarnation out of Judgment. As long as Filth is in our graveyard and we control a swamp, creatures we control have Swamp Walk. Flenzermite, first of our Infect cards. 2 mana for this 1/1 with Infect and Lifelink. Ichor Rats. 2/1 Infect Rat for a black and 1. And on entering the battlefield, this gives each player a poison counter. Don't even have to attack. Once the Ichor Rats comes in, everyone's got a poison counter, and we can start proliferating. A friendly reminder about proliferate, by the way. We choose which counters to add to, shall we say, so we don't have to proliferate our own poison counters at any point. In fact, we never will. Ichorclaw Mirror. 2 mana, 1/1 Infect, and whenever this becomes blocked, it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So a reminder of Infect, of course, is that whenever this deals damage to a player, they get poison counter. They get that many poison counters instead. If this deals combat damage to a creature, or even any sort of damage to a creature, it deals that damage as -1/-1 counters instead. So this can actually fight above its weight class and really weak, even if it gets blocked, truly weak in an opponent's creature. The Necropede, 2 mana for this 1/1, also with Infect. And whenever this is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, we may put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. Necroskitter. Black and 1 for this 1/4 elemental. It has Wither, so this deals damage to creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters. It does not poison our opponents, but it does weaken our opponent's creatures. And whenever a creature an opponent controls with a -1/-1 counter on it dies, we get to return that card to the battlefield under our control. Nether Trader. Can't say I've never seen this card played before, but I was flicking through the Time Spiral Remastered list and spotted this. I'm like, hey, this works here. Black for this 1/1 with Haste and Shadow. This creature can only block or be blocked by creatures with Shadow. And whenever another creature is put to the graveyard from the battlefield, we may pay black to return this from the graveyard to the battlefield. So, Yawgmoth sacrifices a creature. This can come right back in for 1 black. Nurkana Revenant. 6 mana for this 4/4 Vampire Shade, and whenever we tap a swamp for mana, we get an additional black. We can also dump that black mana into the Nurkana Revenant to turn it to make it bigger. +1/+1 until end of turn each and every time. Alpheomancer. Sweet synergy here. 3 mana for this 2/2 Human Shaman. At the beginning of each upkeep, that's ours and our opponent's upkeeps, if we do not control a snake, we put a 1/1 black snake creature token with Death Touch onto the battlefield. And so every turn we can sack it off to Yawgmoth to draw cards. Phyrexian Crusader, 3 mana for this 2/2 with Pro White, Pro Red, First Strike, and Infect. The Pitiless Plunderer. We can turn all our sacrificing into treasure. Treasure, of course, we can turn into mana. This particular Ixalan era uncommon, it's actually worth some money now, about $5 I think, five US dollars. So it's definitely gaining popularity real fast. Plague Mirror, 2 mana for this 1/1 with Infect that we can actually tap for generic mana, or colorless mana. Sorry. Plague Stinger, 1/1 flying Infect for 2 mana. The Reassembling Skeleton, 2 mana for this 1/1, and we can pay 2 mana and return this from the graveyard to the battlefield tapped as an activated ability. Pretty sweet. Sad Robot, Solemn Simulacrum is here. Ghost gets us our land. This draws us a card when it dies. It's going to die because Yawgmoth's going to say it dies and draws us that extra card. Tergrid, God of Fright. We are playing some sacrifice synergies in the deck. Love Tergrid, by the way, and actually I prefer the regular printing, like the art for her regular printing, over the showcase, I have to admit. She's a little too mean to be a commander for me. Black, and 3 for this 4/5 legendary God with Menace. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, we may put that card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under our control. Stupid powerful effect. I'd rather have this in the 99 because if I were to reveal this in a command zone ever, I would expect to get hated out immediately. Of course, we do have the alternative of playing it as Tergrid's Lantern. I mean, if we ever end up in a scenario where we're producing like 30-40 mana, maybe you can play it this way and use this artifact's abilities. But really, we're running Tergrid for Tergrid. Vampire Hexmage. A classic staple. Double black for this 2/1 with First Strike. We can sacrifice this to remove all counters from target permanent. So if there's a permanent with a bunch of +1/+1 counters, a bunch of charge counters, a Planeswalker, take away all its loyalty counters, Vampire Hexmage is amazing. And even if in the specific game that you're playing, this is not useful for any of those purposes, it's sacrifice fodder for Yawgmoth. Vector Asp. 1 mana 1/1, we have to pay a black to give it Infect until the end of turn. Vindictive Vampire. Here's a little bit of the Aristocrat synergy we're talking about. The idea here, of course, is mainly to keep our life total up. So whenever another creature we control dies, this deals 1 damage to each opponent and we gain a life. The Weaponcraft Enthusiast. So a little bit of flexibility here for this 3 mana 0/1. Fabricate 2 means that we can either have this enter with 2 +1/+1 counters, which we could then proliferate and turn this into a beater, or we can have 2 1/1 servos enter the battlefield, and we can sacrifice all 3 of those creatures into Yawgmoth at some point. And Zulaport Cutthroat. Again, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life whenever another creature you control dies. Moving on to enchantments with Bastion of Remembrance. This 3 mana enchantment creates a 1/1 human soldier token when it enters the battlefield. And whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life and you gain a life. Again, maintain our life total. Bitter Blossom. This gives us some more sacrifice fodder on each of our upkeeps. In this case, at the beginning of our upkeep, we lose a life and get a 1/1 black fairy rogue token with flying. Dictate of Erebos. Whenever a creature we control dies, and a lot of our creatures will die, each opponent sacrifices a creature. Dreadhorde Invasion. At the beginning of your upkeep, we get to lose life and amass 1. Amass being that if we don't already have a zombie army token, we make a zombie army token, a 0/0, and put a +1/+1 counter on it. If we've already got one, we put a +1/+1 counter on it. And whenever a zombie token you control with power 6 or greater attacks against lifelink. Generally speaking, we're not going to get to that point, but you never know. If you have a zombie army and you proliferate often enough, we could have a big zombie army beating in and gaining us back some life. Fawn of Agonies. Whenever we pay life, we put that many blood counters on the Fawn of Agonies. Yawgmoth costs life to activate, so yeah. And for a black and 1 and removing 4 blood counters, we get to destroy a creature. Gate to Phyrexia. This double black enchantment's a little spicy. We get to sacrifice a creature to destroy an artifact, but we can only do this during our upkeep and only once each turn. That's fine. Black doesn't have a lot of options for artifact removal, so this is actually pretty sweet. Grave Pact, of course. Whenever a creature we control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature. Nest of Scarabs. Our commander can distribute -1/-1 counters, so I think it's pretty cool that whenever we do so, we get that many 1/1 insect creature tokens. Shade's Form. Here's a flexible little card from Torment. Black, black, and 1 for this enchantment aura, which enchants a creature. When enchanted creature has pay black, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Turn a creature into a beater. Sweet. When enchanted creature is put into a graveyard, return the creature to play under your control. So you can put it on a creature that you already own in order to keep it alive if a board wipe happens. You can put it onto an opponent's creature, kill it, and gain control of it. Lots of options there. Moving on to some instants with Malakir Rebirth. This 1 black instant says we get to choose one of our creatures, or any creature. We lose 2 life, and until end of turn, this creature gains. When this dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. We can also, if need be, play it as Malakir Mire, a land that taps for black, but enters the battlefield tapped. Malicious Affliction. Double black for this instant. Destroy target non-black creature. But if a creature died this turn, we can copy it. So for double black, we can actually kill 2 non-black creatures. Simulacrum. This instant is a little funky. It's a good little defensive piece if somebody swings in for a significant amount. After the damage is dealt to you, you can pay the 2 mana and use this to have all damage done to you so far retroactively dealt to another creature you control. Or more specifically, let's go with the Oracle text that's down here. You gain life equal to the damage dealt to you this turn. Simulacrum deals damage to target creature you control equal to the damage dealt to you this turn. There we go. Supernatural Stamina. Much like Malakir Rebirth, it's 1 black to keep one of our creatures alive through a board wipe or a removal spell. Tainted Strike. For 1 black, target creature gets +1/0 and Infect. It can be one of our creatures, it can be one of our opponent's creatures, it doesn't matter. As long as it's getting through to one of our opponents for damage, boom. Vampiric Tutor. 1 black, go get a card, put it on top of our library. We lose 2 life. We all know it. We all love it. Lands. Running 35 lands, including the Cabal Coffers. Karn's Bastion. 4 mana tap to proliferate. Myriad Landscape. This enters the battlefield tapped, and we can pay 2 and sacrifice it to go get 2 basic land cards. Put them onto the battlefield tapped. Phyrexian Tower is here. Just a flavor add, really. No, of course, it's an excellent card. Sacrifice a creature, add double black. It's an excellent card, always has been. Reliquary Tower, 29 swamps, and an Urborg. And actually, I just thought of it. We do have a few creatures that can be regenerated with a Swarm Yard, so... Regenerate target insect, rat, spider, or squirrel. So, live on camera here, we're just going to add that land in and remove his swamp. Because we do have a couple of rats, we do have a couple of insects. We don't have any squirrels, but that's okay. And also just freshly reprinted in Time Spiral Remastered, so there you go. Three planeswalkers, including Liliana, Dreadhorde General. Whenever a creature you control dies, draw a card, so makes Yawgmoth even better. She can create zombies for us to sacrifice with her +1 ability. That -4, each player sacrifices 2 creatures. If we have a few creatures to spell, we get to draw off of those. And in addition to that, force their opponents to lose some of their resources. -9, very achievable because we are proliferating. Each opponent chooses a permanent they control of each permanent type, then sacrifices the rest. So basically a black balance, if you will. But if we manage to get to this -9 and activate it, there is no reason we shouldn't be able to win the game from there. Jevizat, Doom of Fools. 5 mana for this 4 loyalty planeswalker. +2 gives us 2 0/1 thralled creature tokens that we can eventually sacrifice. +1 says we can sacrifice another creature or planeswalker to draw 2 cards. We draw an additional card if the sacrifice permanent was a commander. And for -10, gain control of all commanders and put all commanders from the command zone onto the battlefield. All under your control, so 3 relevant abilities, especially the 2 pluses. Ugin the Ineffable rounds out our Planeswalker package for this build. 6 mana for 4/4. Colorless spells cost 2 less to cast. +1 says exile the top card of your library face down. Create a 2/2 colorless spirit creature token, and when the token leaves the battlefield, we get the exile card into our hand. Or we can -3 to destroy permanent that is 1 or more colors. That is any permanent, planeswalker or enchantment, whatever. The other planeswalkers that we were considering, I was considering some of the Obnixiluses, some of the other Lilianas, Sorens, but they all require other, say, tribal synergies that don't quite fit here. 8 sorceries, including Agadeem's Awakening. We can play it as Agadeem the Undercrypt if we so wished. Triple black and X, return from your graveyard to the battlefield any number of target creature cards that each have a different converted mana cost of X or less. So we've got creatures that cost 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 6. So we can get some of those back by casting the spell. Or alternatively, it's just a land that comes into play untapped if we pay the 3 life. Awaken the Erstwhile, still one of my favorite EDH weapons. Black, and 3. Each player discards all the cards in their hand and then creates that many 2/2 black zombie creature tokens. We cast this, we are going to take our beats. But we also have a commander that sacrifices creatures to draw cards. We're going to have more cards back in our hand. Lickety split. Exsanguinate. We could win the game with Exsanguinate, or we can just gain a bunch of life. Either way, we need to pad out our life total, and Exsanguinate is a great way to do it while slowing down our opponents as well. Feed the Swarm. Destroy a creature or an enchantment an opponent controls, and you lose life equal to the permanent's converted mana cost. Totally worth it because, hey, black being able to straight up remove an enchantment, sure thing. Grim Tutor is here. Search our library for a card, put it into our hand. Yes, we lose 3 life. That's fine. Running Living Death is a board wipe. Black, and 3. Each player exiles all creature cards from their graveyard, then sacrifices all creatures they control and puts all cards they exile this way onto the battlefield. Get some of our Infectors back later in the game if we need to. Scheming Symmetry. Choose 2 target players. Each of them searches the library for a card, shuffles the library, puts the card on top of it. Early game political advantage. Late game, put the game-winning card on top of our library and just draw it. And lastly, Yawgmoth's Vile Offering, because it just feels right to have it here. This lets us reanimate a creature or planeswalker from any graveyard onto the battlefield under our control, and we also get to destroy a creature or planeswalker. Yes, we need a legendary creature in play in order to cast this. That's fine. Because, well, we always have a legendary creature in our command zone. And that is my take on Yawgmoth. So beware of that green Phyrexian dude. Was it Vorinclex? That recently reappeared in Kaldheim. Because he can slow us down. We have some spot removal to get rid of it if we need to, but he can take us down pretty easily, since anytime we want to proliferate or add a -1/-1 counter, we wouldn't be able to. Other than that, matches up well against pretty much everyone. So, hope you all enjoyed that. Haven't decided what the next tech is going to be. Give myself some time to breathe and recharge the batteries. Also starting a new job very, very soon, and I want to kind of get into shape for that. So that's what's happening here. And don't know what it's going to be next time, but I will see you then. Bye for now.